you've heard me talk about before. This is conversion chunk number 12, dirty little secrets. These are kind of like the things that, this is like what the marketplace, the gurus, the experts don't want you to know, right? And so this is kind of like, right, if you are like, look, if you're selling a software product, this could be what the mainstream software providers don't want you to know about this Google algorithm, don't want you to know about the way search really works, don't want you to know about XYZ. This could be if you're selling any kind of information product or training program. This could be, you know, like what the pros, what they don't tell you as it relates to, you know, like what the pros don't tell you as it relates to using a tripwire offer. Truth is that the tripwire offer, you can get a higher conversion rate, but it requires that you have a bump offer and at least 2 upsells that each convert well, meaning you have to have 4 offers that convert really well. This is one of those dirty little secrets that nobody tells you. They make it seem easy, but blah, 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 right? I'm just using that as an example. Point is, this is the kind of the secrets of the marketplace, the secrets that the other providers don't want you to know. And here what we are trying to do is, obviously we're using this not just as a way, and this I want you to get, because what I'm about to say applies to every single conversion chunk, right? We're not simply educating for the sake of educating. We're not simply just coming up with some dirty little secret that we believe the market has just so that we can tell them about a dirty little secret. Remember, you've heard me say this before, everything that we do and say and show and present in your marketing campaign, whether it's part of the core, the initial sales and marketing page, the VSL, the initial webinar, whatever it may be, or it's these additional conversion chunks that get added on after, everything that we do and say and show and present should be there to further the sale, should be there to create more demand for your thing. So if we're going to tell a dirty little secret that exists in the marketplace, a dirty little secret that the experts, the gurus don't want you to know, it should be something that is polar opposite to what it is that we are offering, right? They don't want you to know that the way the typical software works, it can get you blacklisted by Facebook. Well, that's why we took a 1.5 years to make sure that we got Facebook approval, so that you don't blah, 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 right? And see how we're giving away a dirty little secret that makes our solution, our product, our service that much more valuable. We're not simply just giving a dirty little secret. It's there for a purpose. It's there to make our thing that much more desirable. And so that is conversion chunk number 12. Conversion chunk number 13 is similar to an earlier one. Here we're contrasting your mechanism versus the others, right? So here is, we're taking your unique mechanism, the mechanism behind your product or service, and you are contrasting your mechanism against the other mechanisms. So we're not talking about, and this is important, we're not talking about here your product against others. Because, right, I'm not a believer at all in bad-mouthing a competitor's product, right? I am not a believer in that at all. I do not recommend you do that at all. But this gives you the ability to talk about your mechanism compared to other mechanisms, right? So if I wanted to, let's say, compare, I don't know, you know, let's say I was offering, let's say, for example, I was teaching, let's say I was offering fertilizer that had, a 10-10-10 mix of the 3 core nutrients. And most other fertilizers had a 10-5-8 or something, or 10-5-5. I have no idea what that means. I'm just using that as an example. Right? Well, I would explain what happens when you go with a 10-5-5. I wouldn't name the product. I would name the companies that use the 10-5-5, but I would explain the negatives, the downside of using a 10-5-5 versus the positives of using a 10-10-10. So in essence, you're highlighting all the positives of your mechanism, and you are highlighting all the negatives of the others, right? And you might not, you might pick one thing, right? Like, understand, this could be an email. You could pick one negative, like, so you don't have to highlight all the negatives of the other mechanisms and all the positives of yours. You could pick one what is the one kind of contrasting element between your mechanism and the others out there that would be most meaningful to your prospect, that your prospect would care about the most? Well, it gives you the ability to highlight that. Right? Like if you were marketing and selling a fertilizer, you could literally send out an email that's just like, you know, most homeowners make the mistake of using a fertilizer with a 10-5-5 nutrient ratio. This can cause you massive headaches. What are the headaches? Blah, 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 blah. That's why you want a 10-10-10 mixture. Because here is, right? And then we would give the benefit of that. That's why we invested the time, energy, and effort in making sure that, the Brown fertilizer has a 10-10-10 mixture so that right? So it's a valuable piece of information, but it's you contrasting your mechanism against the others. You taking one negative of the others and showing the reverse or the positive that they get from your mechanism. This is a very, very powerful, tool that I use regularly in our marketing campaigns. Conversion chunk number 14. Explain why now is the perfect time to act. Right? So why is now the perfect time for them to take action? This is one of those that might not apply to everybody's business, to everybody's product or service, but this is a very powerful conversion chunk because your prospects need a reason to respond now. They need a reason to respond. You need to give them the reasoning to respond now. Now, a lot of marketers, a lot of entrepreneurs default to things like a deadline, things like scarcity, things like urgency, right? All of those type of things. And those are okay, right? Those are good. Those are valuable in a marketing campaign. What I'm talking about here is why is now the perfect time for them to act? Is something happening in the economy? Is something happening in the environment? Is something happening in terms of the time of year? Is now the perfect time for them to get started on their nutrition and fitness program because we're still 3 months away from summer, and so they have the opportunity, it's the opportune time to get started, whereas if they wait a handful of weeks, they're going to be behind the 8 ball and getting in shape for the summer. Is now the perfect time to start your business because legislation is coming that's going to change the costs or the legalities of taxes, the tax implications for a business? Why is now the opportune time or the perfect time to act? When you can find this, right, this is an extremely valuable conversion chunk. Really, this is a valuable conversion chunk that should be in your core marketing message as well as can be shared in a conversion chunk. Why is now the right time, the perfect time, the best time for them to act? That's conversion chunk number 14. Conversion chunk number 15. Tell your prospect what your product or method is not. Right? And here, this is very simple. What are all of the things that your prospect does not want from your type of product or service? Right? What are the attributes of your type of product or service that are a deal killer for the prospect? What are the attributes of your type of product or service that the prospect would see as a negative, that they would like to avoid? What are the aspects of using and engaging with your type of product or service that the prospect would see as a negative? You want to list those out during your examination stage, right, when you're doing all of your research, because ideally you want to describe your method as not being the things that your prospect doesn't want. Right? So if you're marketing to, let's say, folks that you are marketing and selling a marketing system to, like, actually, let me take a step back. Many moons ago, when I used to sell a business development program to massage therapists, I knew that they didn't like sales. They really, as crazy as it sounds, most massage therapists are not capitalists. They don't like asking for money. They're very kind of impact driven. They don't want to come across as aggressive. They don't like selling. And so I presented our methodology as a way to grow your business without having to be aggressive, without having to be obnoxious, without having to sell hardcore. Now, granted, right, I I personally don't like selling. I don't like that. So it was easy for me to do that. But I knew that that's what it is that they didn't want. So it's kind of like identify what your prospects don't want in your type of product, and then tell them that your product doesn't have those things. Assuming, of course, that that's the truth, right? So whatever it is that your prospect doesn't want, that your product doesn't have, that your product doesn't force them to do, whatever negative, right, they're trying to avoid, tell them that your product, service, using it doesn't require any of that. And so that is conversion chunk number 15. Conversion chunk number 16 is show them a day in the life of a transformed customer, right? So now what you're going to see in the rest of the remaining few conversion chunks, now you're going to see these are more appropriate for the end of your marketing campaign. This is kind of like these, now you're going to see that now we're moving into kind of more selling. Very early on, we were telling a story about from failure to success, your discovery story. We were teaching them what to do and not how to do it, and teasing a little bit. And right, we were using kind of more education-based marketing. Now we're moving into conversion chunks that are really kind of closer, or getting closer and closer to selling, to talking about the product, to getting a little bit more aggressive in what it is that you're doing. So here we're showing them a day in the life of a transformed customer. I call it a transformed customer, not necessarily a successful customer, because this is about, right, what is what is life like for the typical customer that takes or uses your product or service and is now experiencing the outcome, the result, the impact, the change, the transformation that they wanted, the same transformation, outcome, result that your current prospect wants to experience, right? And so we're sharing what is that like. So if you're marketing, right, to orthodontists that want to try to build a steady flow of leads, well, you're gonna paint a picture of your transformed customer that's an orthodontist that has steady leads, and what that looks like, and what that means for them, and how their business is growing, and how their staff is more motivated, and how the waiting room is bustling, and how they're becoming known as a celebrity, right, more and more, like, and how they come in at 10 o'clock, they leave at 4, they're doubling their income. You're showing them a day in the life of a transformed customer. As a side note, this is whenever I do a multi-step, video campaign. If I use a 3-part or a 4-part video sequence, if I do a live launch or an evergreen kind of style launch, this is almost always the 3rd video, the one video right before the offer video. And so this day in the life of a transformed customer. This is kind of like, now you are in essence painting a picture, painting a movie for the prospect of what life will look like for them after they use your product or service. And you're doing it by showing them what the typical customer experience is now, which is exactly what it is that your prospect should want to experience. Conversion chunk number 17 is very simple. It's customer case study. So this is now similar to when, it's similar to the failure to success story from earlier, except here you are representing, you're presenting this person as a customer, as a user of your product or service. Mary Jane purchased LMNOP 3 months ago. Before that, she was struggling to do blah, 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 blah. She was miserable. She didn't like her garden, right? She took my training course, and 1 week later, here's what she said, blah, 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 right? And now I'm growing a bigger tomato. And so you are presenting this as a customer case study. See how this is more aggressive than just a failure to success story, because now we're talking about your customers, we're talking about your product, and we're talking about the results, the impact that your product has on your customers, specifically people that buy. So earlier we were talking about a failure to success story, which was there to just motivate and excite the prospect about what they could expect to experience, right? Like what life could be like for them. This now is what life is like for a customer, a buyer of your product or service. And this is one of those, like, once you are coming to the end of your marketing campaign, relatively, you can't have enough customer case studies, because this serves as proof, especially when your case study, when your customer was in the same position as your prospect is currently in, or when the case study person was in a worse situation. when they were even more handicapped, they had more struggles, they had more obstacles, they had more issues, right? They were starting out in a worse off situation than your prospect. They discovered, they came across your product, they bought your product, and now the life that they're living is the exact life that your prospect wishes that they could live. That is a great case study. You could never have enough of those, especially when they are diverse, and especially when the customer started off in the same or worse situation as your prospect, because it makes them feel like if that person could do it and all of those people can do it, then I can do it.